Welcome to this presentation. My name is Jos Witjes. I am Assistant Professor Strategic Management and Corporate Social Responsibility at Radboud University in Nijmegen, the Netherlands. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of NBN 2020 for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts with you in this presentation on sustainability and business, learnings from practice and science. I would like to start off with some pictures of the current situation in the world where people protest due to all kinds of issues that they feel and live every day, and where also the academic community is playing a central role, as you can see on the right bottom, where we are being discussed, criticized, but we also protest and rethink and reflect on our situation. And that's what we've seen actually already for many years, that we're trying to rethink as academics the production of knowledge ourselves. If it's in social sciences, where Mr. Gibbons in 1994 wrote an interesting book on the new production of knowledge, towards sustainability sciences, where you can see more attention for action research. And what we see in this change of rethinking the production of knowledge is that there, and some people call it mode 1 to mode 2 science, transdisciplinary approaches are playing a central role, where transdisciplinarity is seen as a reflexive, integrative, method-driven scientific principle aiming at a solution or transition of societal problems, and concurrently of related scientific problems by differentiating and integrating knowledge from various scientific and societal bodies of knowledge. So it's focused on a question, as you can see it in the figure, which is central, a question or an issue or a challenge which is in society, in practice, and where both cycles, so the scientific knowledge production cycle and the intervention cycle of development of products, interventions, innovations, are connected. Over the last 20 years, I have been trying to contribute to societal challenges in different parts of the world by applying transdisciplinary research approaches, whether it's in Silicon Valley, where I focused on new product development, experiences of project managers, or on the left top, the resettlement roundtable, which we did for the World Bank, or it's in companies where I tried to help them with the integration of sustainability. In this case, and in this presentation, I would like to share my experiences based on the case of Corporate Sustainability Roundtable, which I organized from 2009 until 2012, where I started with a question from the companies on how should we integrate sustainability into our organizational systems. I decided to turn that around, and I asked them, how do you integrate it, and show me. That resulted in 20 to 30 meetings, which we did at organizations, showing us how they did sustainability, where we also invited many other companies that were able to see and also reflect for themselves how they did it. We ended up with more or less 300 organizations, companies, bigger, smaller, medium-sized enterprises, with the willingness to enhance their contribution to a more sustainable development of society. And what you see in the slide is the major outcome, where they told me, as an answer to my question, that first of all they want to clean up inside their organization before they would go outside to look for external cooperation with, for example, supply chain or societal partners, and before they would communicate this as sustainability to the outside world. In this presentation, I would like to reflect on the research that I did afterwards, understanding this 1, 2, and 3 from a vision, an indicators, a strategy action gap, and the role of academia perspective. Starting off with the vision. As many of you of course know, sustainability is seen as the 3P: people, planet, and profit. In organizations, this is most of the time translated into standards. Or management system standards, where the environmental part can be seen as complied with the ISO 14001, the social with the OSHA's 18001, and even companies translate the money part into quality and say that's therefore ISO 9001. As many companies call it, this is the triple crown. If you are certified in this way, then you very much show that you try to ensure your outcomes. And ensure also in a sustainability perspective. So SDGs, so a lot of companies go after SDGs, how to ensure that you can do this with a management system standard. There is no management system standard on sustainability, but the Triple Crown can ensure this. With companies, I always reflect on it and say, hey, but what does this all have to do with what the Brundtland Commission back in '87 actually said? It's about ensuring that the current generations can comply with their needs without compromising the same compliance of needs of future generations. I don't hear anything about money, don't hear about people, about SDGs, about management systems. What is your role? So the company has to really come up with their own, let's say, authentic definition of sustainability and how they contribute to a better society. Well, in this reflection process, what we try to do with the companies is actually reflect on it from an issue, time, and a place dimension. Where in the issue dimension, you can see it in a planet and a people part, but there are also this prosperity dimension. So prosperity, how does a company contribute to the development of society, development of people? And of course, economic part is an important element there, but it's a means, it's not a goal. And in this prosperity part, so the developmental part, you can also see there's a time dimension. It's about the past, the present, and the future. And a place dimension, a very important one for an organization, where you can see the organization as here. It's about the supply chain or wider society as there. But there's also an employee perspective over there. Yeah, so this has helped these dimensions to reflect with organizations, us to contribute to this. So from a Levision's perspective, the learnings, it's about authenticity. So organizations really have to think about what is their contribution to a better society. At the same time, we've seen a cacophony in both practice and science on the definition of sustainability and sustainable development. And of course, there is a complexity and a systems thinking to it. The dimensions already showed it. To give an example now from an indicator perspective and from this complexity aspect, circular economy. We have also been working with companies on the concept of circular economy, where we've seen also this is an example of only which we did an analysis of scientific literature on the definitions of the different R options. We summarized it into 10 options, where the basic ones, the reminding, recovery, and recycle, go towards even the reduce or even refuse. And we try to frame that in a more complex version, let's say, of what the Ellen MacArthur Foundation did with a butterfly figure. It was not the goal to make it an easy, understandable figure. The goal was to try to link it to the organizational system, where the different processes, you can see it here, policy, idea generation, designing, realization, evaluation, are directly connected to the different options. So this helped us also in collaboration with companies to reflect on how do companies, and by means of an indicator, as we see it here as the R options, try to contribute to a better society. And what you can see here is that they really have to go in the organizational system and make it an integral part of the organization. And what we've seen actually in the Dutch society and on a national level, as you can see on the left, in the middle at a city level, regional level, in this case the city of Nijmegen, and on a company level of some organizations in the city of Nijmegen, that many companies, taking it from an indicator perspective, stay with the basic elements of circular economy, so recycling, and not going too much towards the more complex things, and integrate circularity in the organizational system by also taking a product perspective or even maybe reconsidering developing products. So what we actually learned from this indicator's perspective is that the contribution of firms to society should go from reactive to proactive. So the sooner a firm starts with the strategy designing process, the more impact it can generate. And therefore, it is important full integration of sustainability in the organizational system. In order to understand how companies do this integration of sustainability in the organizational system, we have to understand how that works. And as you can see it on the right, we have just the issue dimension. And the organizational system is impacting that by means of physical dynamics, machines, materials, and the social dynamics, people, their behavior. And the interventions that we can play in this dynamics can adjust also the issue dimension. So understanding these interventions from a physical and a social perspective, but also from a formal and informal perspective, can help us understand. And what we've seen is in this understanding is that many companies, by intervening in the organization system for an enhanced corporate sustainability, stay with especially the formal physical side. So change machines, change materials, that's the easy, let's say, part. The more complex part, so the informal social side, so it's about the basic assumptions, it's about the I, as we call it in the cube, yeah? It's not much touched upon. And what we see also is that this intervention planning is done in a backcasting way. So envisioning the future as the natural step of Carl-Hendrik Robert does it, going back to the current state and then paving the road forward. That's what a lot of companies do. But what a lot of companies forget is, hey, where do we come from? What have we already achieved? And by understanding this, you can pave a more realistic way forward. We all try to merge this into the figure of the corporate sustainability strategy framework, where we work with 3 feedbacks. The first feedback is about the intervention. So how do the interventions lead to adjustments to the physical and social dynamics in an organization, so the practical feedback. The next one is about how does that then is connected to the goals of the organization. And finally, the feedback Z is about how does that then result into future strategies that enhance the corporate sustainability of the organization. And if you look at it from a scientific literature perspective, we take here the major scholars in the field, is that you see that this feedback acts. So it's about the interventions and understanding how they are successful in changing the organization system. Many of them are covering this. If you go from you look at feedback Y, so how does these interventions and also are connected to the goals of the organization, less are covering this topic. And then including even feedback Z, so and how does that understanding, this reflection then lead to better strategies, that's even less. So that's where a lot of gaps in the enhanced understanding of corporate sustainability are there. So from a learning perspective on the strategy action gap, it's about looking more and also backwards, so this retrospective view, and it's the attention for this reflective process on the different feedbacks. And in these reflective feedbacks, we as academics can play a major role, because we generate knowledge and we bring knowledge together from both the practical and academic side, as also transdisciplinary approaches tell us. At the same time, we generate interventions and we lead to capacity building, for both students but also people in an organization. So therefore, applying transdisciplinary academics can help us not only enhanced understanding of corporate sustainability, but also helping the organizations directly. So to wrap it up, academics that support companies in contributing to the sustainable development of society by, from a vision perspective, creating an authentic vision that is, from an indicator's perspective, fully integrated in the organizational system by means of, from a strategy action gap, a retrospective analysis with a balanced physical and social lens, and from the role of the academia is based on the collaboration between researchers, students, and companies. So thank you very much for your attention. If you want to know more about these research projects and about my work, please feel free to send me an email. And on this slide you will also see some references that I used in this presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.